Tesla has had a few big range successes this week, both with the Model 3 refresh, the 3 fresh, if you will, and with the Semi. And so here to talk about it with me today is our good friend Mark from The Tesla Life. He will be joining us to break down some numbers. And although he thought this was the case, I assure him there will be math. I'm Brian. Welcome to my Tesla Weekend. Oh, Mark, how are you? So good to see you again.
Doing well, Brian. How are you today?
I'm doing good. You have so many wheel covers. That seems like a number that is too high.
You don't want to let people know I have all these wheel covers. Nobody knows how I got them. We're not going to talk about that.
Using his referral credits and just hoarding. They're all mine now. When the shortage comes, I'll be very rich. Oh, that's a strategy.
Actually, what happened is that when I purchased my Model 3, I found out quickly after that point that the wheel covers were causing the paint to rub off on the rims.
Oh,
So I popped them off immediately, and I've been running without covers since that point. I bought a second set of rims so I could put winter tires on them, and I immediately popped those covers off too. So that's why I got 8 rims or 8 covers hanging on my wall.
I made a video. I put some. I got a sponsor deal, and I do very very few of those because I won't do anything unless I actually believe in it. And what they convinced me to do is they said, okay, wheel covers not exciting. Why don't you make a video doing a tutorial about how to put on wheel covers? I said, there you go. So I put them on just for the day, and I was like, you know what? Those actually look pretty good. And so I still have them, and they overhang the lip so that when you do rub up against a curb, you damage the covers and not the wheels.
That's good too.
So
Yeah.
that's what I've been enjoying. So let's see here. 1,000 miles. That sounds like how far those Irish guys walked to be with someone.
The song, yes.
Pretty sure but they walked and this is driving, so that's valuable. Uh, what?
It's valuable on a different podcast, apparently.
Apparently. So this story, you heard about it. You may have covered it a little bit on your show. Tell me what we know.
Yeah, you've got a third party that does tests in the United States for transportation companies. So what's happened is that PepsiCo has been testing the Tesla Semi with a third-party testing source. They test fleets, other vehicles, and compare their notes so they can see how well the vehicle performs. And what has happened is the Tesla Semi has such a large battery that it's able to travel 500 miles on a single charge, and then it's able to quick charge in about half an hour to an hour, and then it can travel another 500 plus miles to end the day. Of course, in trucking, drivers have to change every 8 hours. They have to have a regulated rest period. So in this particular test with PepsiCo, they were seeing how far can this vehicle actually go with the driver change, the charging of the vehicle, and of course the actual route it has to go. And they've determined that they can easily do over 1,000 miles in any 24-hour period. So this is a big plus to transportation companies that are looking to electrify. They will look at Tesla in different light because they've got a vehicle that can provide them more mileage. Now, this necessarily is not a vehicle that would be classified as a long-haul trucker. What you're looking at here is basically regional, that you'd be able to drive within a state or just out to a neighboring state in those 1,000 miles. You're not talking about driving across the country. Although when Tesla starts to build the infrastructure, having chargers along the route, then that will become an option. But in the testing stage, these regional journeys is allowing Tesla to collect this information that they get from PepsiCo and bake that into their updates and iterations of the Tesla Semi.
So let's look at it this way. You'd mentioned that other trucking companies have less range. Kenworth, Peterbilt, a lot of those guys have like 100 to 150 miles of range. That is not great, but it is well suited for applications of moving from the port to your warehouse or the port to the rail yard. great. You can run all day without hitting 100 miles, pop it back on the charger overnight or in a time that works. For coast to coast, yeah, even the 500-mile may be a stretch, but as you pointed out, there is a time limit to how many hours you can be behind the wheel. And at 60 miles an hour, that's 8 hours and 20 minutes. At 70 miles an hour, it's a hair over 7 hours. So, and there are always people who say, yes, but where I live, I'm in Texas and the trucks do 80. Yeah, at 80, you're going to get no range because that is a big, big sail. You are plowing through some headwind at that point. It's going to shorten the
Not a
range.
sail, it's a brick.
It is a catcher's mitt for the wind, and 80 is going to cause problems. And the speed limits can be very high in Texas. I know the San Antonio Expressway has a passenger car speed limit of 85. And of course, because that's the limit, everyone's going 90, 95. That sounds terrifying, but all right. I'm sure it feels normal and natural to them. So so you run for 7, 8 hours, stop for 20 minutes and juice up enough to continue your drive. And realistically, you probably stop during those 8 hours somewhere for some reason. The other complaint I've heard about these tests is they're not scientific. They're not controlled enough. And the reason for that is these are working trucks in real working environments doing real work. That's more valuable to the shipping companies than it would be to give up their truck for a week or two to conduct the tests. I don't care what you can get around a track or in an environment that isn't suited. I need to know what I get
Yeah.
for my literal actual use case. And so when they had the run on less test a while back, where they were companies were permitted to submit their trucks for evaluation, PepsiCo participated in that as well, and Tesla did very well in that. And a lot of people complained, well, this truck is running a different route with different cargo than this truck. How is that valuable? It's valuable to them. And setting up that test in a scientific way would be cost prohibitive, to put it mildly.
It also gives them the ability to look at those different scenarios and see how their software, how their hardware reacts to it. And as we know, Tesla is an iterative company. They will look at modifying little pieces and parts of it in order to make the whole better. So this becomes a process where they can test these on these different routes. They can test hauling different loads. They can test with different drivers. And all this comes back to make a better product and to make it more efficient as time goes along.
Like you were saying, they're going to need to build out the mega charger infrastructure for these trucks, but they don't need to do that today because if I'm a shipper, I know what my use case is. I know if I need power back at the depot, I know if I need power at the destinations, and plugging this truck in to a level 2 charger would be a slow process. You are
Yeah.
going to need dedicated hardware that's designed for this purpose. Not impossible. If you're a long haul trucker and you've got a week off, sure, plug it into the J1772 and see how much juice you can pull out of the neighborhood over the course of a week. Your power bill comes and they're like, "Look at that! You drew a megawatt." That's impressive. But and then pull a second one from your neighbor. I'm sure they won't mind.
No, not at all.
No, why would they? But it's impressive that it's actually working. And now we're starting to see that the factory is finally being built. It is my belief that there were not enough 2170 cells to permit full scale construction of the semi line until the 4680 line was better ramped. And that ramp is still a little uncertain, but there are other ways to get the batteries and get it going within a year, we hope.
You know, Brian, we've had people comment on some of our videos about saying that they have an order for a semi. They're waiting for it. They want it. This is an owner operators, guys that have single trucks or maybe two or three possibly. and they're anxious to get their hands on it. And I keep pumping the brakes for these guys, saying, you know what? You really shouldn't be over excited about it at this point, because you, as an owner operator, you depend more on that single truck than any of these larger companies like PepsiCo do. And you would not want to be in a situation where you're testing for Tesla, as PepsiCo is currently doing, and you lose hours with the truck because maybe it breaks down or there's a problem or something has to be fixed. Even if you were in the area where Tesla could fix it, that truck being off your route is going to cost you money. So you might want to let PepsiCo take that risk, because they've got hundreds of trucks that can do those jobs, and that they're able to let a truck drop off to be fixed or updated or whatever, more than an owner operator could.
Absolutely agree. If you're going to lose 20% of your fleet, 50%, 100% for something, there was a very small issue. I don't remember what it was. I want to say it was like a break. I don't remember what it was. There was some very small issue with the semi that made the entire fleet have to stop and wait for a couple days to get a retrofit. That would kill you. You don't want
Yeah.
that. And you're going to get better attention from Tesla if you've got 30 trucks than if you've got two. That's just how business works. So they're going to do well. Now, the other one I wanted to bring up that we mentioned briefly was there was a recent 70-mile-an-hour range test in the new Model 3. How'd that go? Did you hear anything about that?
I heard that it went extremely well. They drove it on highway mostly at 70 miles per hour. And based on the EPA amount that the vehicle is supposed to get in range, driving at 70 miles an hour, it was only 4% off of the EPA range. And this was at a temperature of about 55 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So it wasn't even optimal conditions as outside temperature is related to, but it's only 4% off and traveling at 70 miles an hour. I think that's a pretty successful test.
That is a huge success. Part of the benefit is the EPA adjusted their guidelines on uh, how range must be calculated to make it slightly more realistic. And the other benefit is it's just a newer, better car. But even still, getting 96% of your expected range while traveling at highway speeds is wonderful. The only criticism I saw, and it's just nitpicky, is, well, the driver actually said he tried to keep it at 70. We don't know how much of that it actually was. Again, this is real world testing versus track testing versus controlled environment testing. I care less about what the controlled environment says than what the real world test is. That's Do you really think you got back 20% of your battery because a couple times you had to slow down for a merging truck? Come on. Crazy talk.
Yeah, it's something that that real owners should be concerned about real testing. You're right. You can put this thing on a track. You may be able to eke a few more miles out of it based on that, or a little bit higher of a temperature outside might eke a little bit more out of it. But guess what? In the real world, we're not living at an ideal 70 degrees Fahrenheit and everyone drives 60 miles an hour on the freeway constantly. There's ups and downs, there's changes back and forth. And you, as someone that lives in the real world, should be more concerned with how that vehicle operates in that real world.
You know someone is going to take this car out on a track at 70 and run all day at 35 miles an hour to see what the real hyper mile range is. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to be in the high fours, I would guess, because cut the aero drag, get the ideal temp. And also the driver only drove to zero, not to stop. So, and driving to zero would have gotten you to a dead stop, would have gotten you more miles. We don't know how many more because that was not part of the test.
Yeah.
So range is getting exciting, whether it's for the semi, whether it's for the passenger vehicles, whether it's for anything Tesla makes, except for the Cybertruck. And there's going to be a lot of improvements coming along. In what? I don't know why there's something funny there, but it's in the comments. You can tell me what are your thoughts on range? because I am confident they're all doing great. What do we miss? What do we misunderstand? If you get a chance, head over to the Tesla Life, show them some love. They do a hour-long show every week live, and you can get in the chat and make comments that makes them giggle that they would never put on screen, I have discovered. So
Lucky we have that control.
because you see because I type and I hit it, and then you see Casey look over and he's like, I'm not
Not putting that one on. No
I'm not
way.
I'm not clicking on that one. I mean, it's good, but it's the wrong venue, Brian. So yeah, let us know in the comments. Everybody like, subscribe, do the usual things. I appreciate you guys just being here, sticking around this long anyway. Hit the thumb in either direction. It's purely decorative, but it does help drive engagement. And if you really hated this, definitely leave a bunch of comments, because nothing convinces YouTube to show it to more people than all those angry, bitter, hateful people. You do my work for me, and I appreciate it. So everybody else, like, subscribe, stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots on the flippity flop.